Hey guys, what's up? It's Biscuit Duel Horror Reviews. I'm here with a pretty quick, kind of impromptu review of a Fred Olen Ray film from 1980 that's been on my watch list since forever, mainly because of its title, plot, and the fact that it currently holds a 2.5 out of 10 average rating on IMDb, which is kind of it inspires me to see movies that are truly awful because I want to see if they really are that bad. All right, maybe before I introduce him, I should explain who Fred Olen Ray is. For those who aren't aware, Fred Olen Ray is a director who did his first movie in the late '70s. It was called The Brain Leeches, um, which is I've never seen. His follow up to it is tonight's film, and then after that he did a film called Scalps, which was like a Native American themed supernatural slasher film that was pretty bad. I reviewed that one on my channel in like 2013, I think. It was a very long time ago when I reviewed that one. That review isn't even up anymore, I don't think. But he went on to direct a bunch of other stuff. He directed Evil Toons, which I haven't seen, but I know is a really bad horror film about killer cartoon characters. There's also he also did Invisible Mom and Invisible Dad, which were a couple of direct-to-video films that were awful. And now he does mostly direct-to-video stuff as well as TV movies. So, but this he also did Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers in the late '80s, which is about a cult of murderous chainsaw-wielding hookers, which is very entertaining, schlocky, stupid, like very self-aware kind of horror comedy. That was, I think, the first film I saw from Fred Olen Ray, just because the title alone is so jarringly weird. Tonight's movie, the movie I'm talking about, is his second feature film, The Alien Dead, which came out in 1980. I don't know if the title was changed to The Alien Dead when it hit home video because of Evil Dead being such a big hit, or if that was its title from the beginning. As far as I could tell, that was the title from the beginning, which is interesting to say the least. This movie, as far as I could tell, was shot in the late '70s, mid to late '70s. It looks and feels very, very '70s. Like if you were to show this movie to me, clips from it, and ask me to what decade I could guess it was from, I would probably say the '70s, because this movie feels immensely '70s in pretty much every way. It was released in 1980, direct to video, and it's kind of a bad zombie movie where a meteor hits a houseboat, causing everybody on it to become zombies, who then eat all the alligators in a swamp. And then the local residents who hunt alligators as their main source of income are pissed off because all of the alligators are dead. And then people start turning up dead, ripped in half, stabbed with pitchforks, this, that, the other, and the local police force just says, oh, it's just a big, mean alligator that has eaten all the other alligators and is now eating people. A scientist and, as well as a local newspaper journalist go to investigate, and they discover that it's actually zombies. This movie was shot in Florida, and you can tell by the fact that everything is fucking swamps in this movie. Either swamps or kind of, like, it just looks like Florida. I don't live in Florida, but I've been to Florida a few times, and this film looks and feels very much like Florida, kind of like how some of Herschel Gordon Lewis's early stuff, like, obviously Blood Feast, for example, feels very, very southern and Florida esque. Oh God, where am I gonna start? Should go ahead and say that this is an ultra low budget gore film that is, according to what I've read, it was supposed to be it's supposed to be funny, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like they were genuinely trying to be funny for a good amount of it. And the parts that are actually funny are pretty much everything else. Like the fact that the acting is awful, the characters are flat as hell, the effects are cheap and cheesy. You don't even really see these zombies eat people most of the time. They usually just kind of kill them, and then the people are eaten off screen. There's a really great moment, which I think is probably the highlight of the entire film, where somebody is stabbed with a pitchfork that has 3 prongs on it, but when it comes out them the other end, it has 4 prongs on it. Like, how do you fuck that up? I don't know how, but they did. I will give extra points, though, because I really love it when pitchforks are used to kill people in movies. That's just something I don't see super, super often. And that specific farming instrument is something that I always really thought makes for good death scenes. And it's something that I don't see often in movies. Yeah, this is basically this movie is horrible in every aspect, and if you are used to bigger budget normal horror films, this might be the worst movie ever to you. But to somebody like me who has been around the block quite often and has seen films, has seen Manos Hands of Fate and Invasion of the Blood Farmers, and a lot of other things, this movie kind of reminds me of Bloodsucking Freaks, except Bloodsucking Freaks was obviously supposed to be funny. This and isn't a super gory flick. This is this movie doesn't feel like a comedy at all, and this one has quite a bit of gore to it. Shit, I don't know what to say. Like, from a technical aspect, it's relatively okay. There are some shots that I kind of like, despite the transfer of the film looking really bad. And yeah, if you like Fred Olen Ray films, I could go ahead and say check this out. If you like bad, 80s horror, this is definitely something to seek out. If you like bad direct-to-video horror films like Jacko, last week's movie, this is definitely something to check out. Also, Fred Olen Ray wrote Jacko, so the guy who made this had a hand in that. This movie is just one big clusterfuck of just bad shit. It's not as bad as, a lot of other movies I've seen. It's not as bad as, like, Ozone, Attack of the Redneck Zombies, or Attack of the Redneck Mutants, which is one that I think that one was shot on video. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen that one. But that one I wasn't the biggest fan of. I thought it was kind of boring other than a couple gore scenes. This movie is relatively entertaining. Some of the character antics are kind of funny. And the gore scenes are definitely interesting. And if you like cheesy gore effects and cheesy monster effects, this is definitely something to see. If you don't like those things, and you think those things weigh a movie down and make it worse, then this is not a movie for you. This is bad, but it's not Axum bad, it's not Ozone Redneck Zombies bad, it's not Manos the Hands of Fate bad, it's not Invasion of the Blood Farmers bad. This movie kind of feels like a cheaper Don Dohler film. For those of you who don't know Don Dohler, he did a lot of low-budget horror films in the 70s and into the 80s and 90s. And his most well-known films are probably his first film, Alien Factor, as well as his follow-up to it, The Fiend, which is a really creepy mixture of zombie films, vampire films, and alien films. And this movie is kind of a cross between aliens and zombies. Another film he did was Night Beast, which is a really entertaining, gory, fun little creature feature about an alien crash landing on Earth, and he slaughters and eats the local residents of a small town. This movie feels like a cheap Don Dohler film, and while I do genuinely think Don Dohler is a good director, considering everything he had to, all the hoops he had to jump through to get his movies done, and how low budget they are, this movie feels even cheaper than his movies, which is kind of saying something. I should also mention that this movie is I've lost my train of thought. I fucking hate myself. Um, Also, this movie kind of reminds me of Zat, which, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you might know about Zat. If you don't, it's a really bad creature feature film from Florida, from the early 70s that's really entertaining and charming, despite it being really god-awful and kind of boring. This is a very similar film to that. I really don't know what else to say. Uh, but this movie is kind of like if Don Dohler and Andy Milligan tried to make a uh, really low budget monster movie together. Um, on the gore meter from 1 to 10, 1 being something like Nosferatu, 10 being something like Peter Jackson's Brain Dead. The Alien Dead is probably a 4, 4.5, maybe a 5. It's a decently gory little flick, although it's not an absolute splatterfest. But there are severed limbs. There are really gross-looking, rotted zombies walking around. And there is somebody who gets, ripped in half, and somebody who gets stabbed with a pitchfork, and this, that, and the other. Now I remember what I wanted to say. It's a little funny little piece of trivia about this movie is that in the original version of the script, Fred Olen Ray, he wanted to make a movie about giant leeches from outer space landing on Earth in a meteorite and eating the alligators in the swamp, and then people investigate and they encounter giant leech monsters which eat them. He then realized that with the money he had for the production, he couldn't afford to do the effects or costumes for giant leech monsters, so he instead rewrote it to where instead of it being leeches inside a meteorite, it's just a meteorite that hits a boat, and the people on the boat become zombies. Yeah, this movie was originally about giant leeches from outer space, but he couldn't afford the effects, so he was like, yeah, giant zombies, that makes it work. The giant zombies, what I want to say, zombies, that makes it work. Which I kind of love back behind the scenes stories like that about low budget films. That being said, this movie's bad. It's really bad. Like, I don't know how many more times I gotta say it's bad, but yeah. Either way, I kind of enjoyed this movie. It's charming despite how low budget the production was, and despite the fact that it can get a little boring at times. I was genuinely entertained and genuinely into everything that was going on in the film. Despite that, I would definitely say that this is a great example of a background noise movie. While not as much of a background noise movie as stuff like the ghastly ones, I guess you could say. Like as much as this isn't a background noise movie in the same way that like Cannibal Terror is a background noise movie. Because that movie is genuinely awful, but it has a couple good moments. This movie is, bad, but it's not as bad as Cannibal Terror in terms of production value, and it's got a lot more good moments sprinkled throughout. This is definitely something to put on in the background if you want something dumb, just as some background noise while you're playing video games, working on a paper, doing some art, this, that, the other, working on music. I don't know, whatever you do in your free time. Also, I should mention this movie is on Amazon Prime streaming in the US if you want to watch it. It's also on Dailymotion if you want to watch it. It's been uploaded to YouTube like 3 times. So this movie is readily available if you do want to check it out. I think the limited edition DVD that was on Amazon might still be available. I don't know for sure, but it could be. Either way, that is all we have for tonight. God, this was a rambly review, as they all are. Anyway, guys, this is Biscuit Boo Horror Reviews, signing off. Peace.